Mecole Hardman. Everything. I go.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
Mecole Hardman, Elbert County High School, Bowman, Georgia.
Another edition of Riding Home. This time, Dean Legge and Matt DeBary. This is the 19th year in a row that a Georgia player will be in the Super Bowl. Mecole Hardman playing for the Chiefs against the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to talk about Mecole's journey through Elbert County all the way to the Super Bowl. And we're going to touch, too, on the offensive line coming up in 2020. Matt, when you see Mecole running around out there, it can't be much of a surprise that he is an explosive playmaker in the NFL, considering everything we saw over his 4-year career at Georgia.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's really cool, from my perspective, because Mecole was one of the first guys that I interviewed, covering Georgia recruiting for Dog Post. Mecole was one of the first guys that I got to know. I saw him early on. He was always a great guy, gave me a great interview, and just a super nice guy overall. So the talent was always there, but it was really cool to interact with him off the field as well. But, I saw him in the Rising Seniors game take over when guys participated in the Rising Seniors game. But, he took Elbert County a long way, in the playoffs on his back at quarterback, just running around and being the best playmaker, fastest guy on the field by a mile. So he was fun to watch, always has been, always been explosive. We saw him at Dog Night, catching bombs from Jacob Eason. Jeremy Pruitt took him, put him at defensive back. He started running backwards. I remember you said, not many people can run, forward as fast as Mecole can run backwards. And he's just a great athlete, and he's proven early on. He's had a great rookie year, and I believe he's the first Pro Bowler that I covered in high school. He made the Pro Bowl this year, so really cool to see him and just see his career, from Elbert County through Georgia and now into the NFL. And I don't know, Dean, I've said this for a while. It feels like Georgia probably should have got Mecole Hardman the ball a little bit more than they did.
Sony and Michelle probably too in that national championship game. If we're picking on things, I think Mecole was very interested in football from the get-go, and you could see it. I'm trying to remember. It was at a camp with Chad that I first met him. I'm going to have to now go back and look at the pictures real quick. Y'all are seeing them. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing them scroll past. But this is, as we record this, I'm having a hard time. I think that was in 2014 when I first met Mecole Hardman and did some photo shoots with him. And then just through the years, watching Mecole, the thing about it is everybody knows how to pronounce his name now. Everybody, he's a known entity. You understand what you've got, but when you first meet players like Mecole, you don't know. You don't know what their name. How do you exactly pronounce this guy's name? What's the correct way to pronounce it? The first image I have of Mecole was from almost 6 years ago in 2014. That was at a MVP camp that Chad was running at the time. And we did a photo shoot, I think, later that day. And he was a heck of a player, man. He was fast. And here are some blasts from the past that were in some of these shots with Mecole. Tobias Little from Mays, Lovejoy's, Montel Custis, Quintez Johnson from Cedar Grove, and Antoine Jackson from Cedar Grove. Those were all guys that were at that combine. And the big thing for Mecole, and here's an image you took. I'm just looking at it right now. It was at an Adidas camp. It was stuff that he really got into the camps. He enjoyed them. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, there's no doubt. He was the first guy in line. He wanted all the reps. I took a picture, put up on Twitter years ago of him staying after an MVP camp, working with defensive backs and their backpedal and this and that. And he could have gone home. It was at Lovejoy High School. He lived in Elbert County. If I'm Mecole, I'm getting back on the road, taking my nap and wanting to get back. But he was staying after this camp that was already 3 hours long, and was helping some of these younger guys. And I think he was a high 4-star, maybe a low 5-star guy at the time. Everyone already knew him, but he loves the game. He loves getting better. He loves teaching it to others. And he's just a football guy. He's a football guy, and it's really worked out for him. And I mean, he's made it.
I'll tell you what. Being local in Athens, it gives you the ability to see guys. Now, you don't see tons of guys like you would like when I grew up in Tucker, so I know, which is in East Atlanta, so I know good football for sure. In Athens, you don't see it as much because you have only 2 high schools, whereas there's 40 or so, maybe even more than that in Atlanta, probably closer to 100. But anyway, long story short, there are 2 guys that I've seen play high school football in Athens lately. They were both at Cedar Shoals, poor Cedar Shoals. The first one that I saw was Mecole, and he absolutely destroyed Cedar Shoals that night. It was a 40-14 win for Elbert over Cedar Shoals. And then I don't know if it was a year later. Did you want to say something?
No. I was listening to your story. I'm trying to figure out who the other guy is.
The other guy is not in the NFL yet, but he's going to be he's going to be a first-round draft pick, and it was Derek Brown. And they absolutely, I mean, I felt bad for Cedar Shoals with Derek, and I felt bad for them, frankly, with Mecole. It was a year. It was a couple of weeks later. So on August 29th, 2015, just before Georgia started Grayson Lambert against, oh my gosh, I'm trying to block so much of that year out. It was such a ridiculous moment. And then September 18th, 2015, Derek Brown and company beat Cedar Shoals 35-0. Those 2 players within not that long from one another just absolutely destroyed Cedar Shoals. And I have to say, looking back on it, I think Derek was probably more impressive, but that was because Mecole was playing quarterback, and he was. I mean, this is a guy that is an NFL. I mean, an All-Pro. Was he All-Pro? No, it was NFL. He wasn't All-Pro. He was. I
think he made the Pro Bowl.
Pro Bowl, which is not the same as All-Pro. But boy, I would not be stunned if Mecole was an All-Pro guy. He was. That night at Dog Night with Jacob, that was cool. But the part that was so crazy to me was how fast he was running in the DB drills. The kids were running forward, and Mecole was running backwards, at least as fast, if not faster, than they were. They had no chance of completing passes. That's why I wasn't so sure he wouldn't be a defensive back at the next level in college.
Well, it's crazy because the big name that was at that camp wasn't Mecole. Jacob Eason was a big deal, but the big recruit there was Demetrius Robertson. That's the guy everyone wanted to see. Funny how things turned out.
Which year was that? Can you remember specifically?
It was Schottenheimer was there, so I think it was the summer going into 2015.
Yeah, it is. Here it is, right here. I've got it. Yeah,
the Trevor Lawrence Dog Night.
So that's
what I like to call it.
I think that was when Trevor was. I think they maybe thought that Trevor was going to play more like he did in the national championship game than what he's been like the bulk of his time at Clemson. But
we could do a whole nother riding home on this that Dog Night. But Mecole was the guy. We knew he had NFL speed. That's why he was a 5-star. We knew he had the explosiveness, and it worked out for him. I don't know why he didn't play. He was a defensive back his freshman year. I don't know. He didn't redshirt, but he didn't play a whole lot anyway. But would have nice to have seen Mecole play a little bit and help Jacob Eason out in that 2016 season for sure.
Yeah, that Dog Night was actually. I'm just looking through the photos here, and again, everybody will see them. I mean, here's Nate McBride. I'm seeing. You might not see them as I do this, but there's Nate McBride is there. Ben Cleveland, Tyler Simmons.
Bailey Hockman committed to Georgia that night, I think.
Yeah.
That was the night.
Isaac Nauta, Charlie Warner.
Guys like
McGree.
Marlon Davidson who would go to Auburn, and there were a ton of players there.
Yeah, there were some players now, no doubt about it. Cam Akers, who, and here's Trevor making the journey all the way down.
Standing in
I
line.
don't know what they were doing, man. They just screwed that up. I mean, that's just That's all there is to it. And, he's an exceptional player. He's a first-round draft pick for sure, top, 5 guy. Now, Bailey Hockman had already committed. Jacob was already committed. So maybe that's the reason why he was, number 3 in line, so to speak. But
Jake Fromm was not there. I remember Jacob Eason, Hockman, and Trevor throwing right beside each other, those 3. But back to Mecole, we could keep, that dog.
Well,
that was wild.
I go back through images and, Anthony McFarland, Demetrius Robertson. Yeah, he wasn't even going that night, but he was there, and I think was committed to Alabama at the time. Can you refresh my memory on that?
Man, that was a long time ago. I don't know if he was committed. He might have been leaning somewhere, but you talk about wild recruitments. That was definitely one of them.
Yes.
4 years ago. So
yes.
I remember it just being a big deal that he was there. And, in Athens, he was a 5-star guy as well. But it was Mecole that was running routes. He tried to get all the reps he could because he was buddies with Jacob Eason. They came in that, same class together.
Yeah.
And
you think Trevor's
crazy how things change. But
you think Trevor's had a haircut since 2000?
Maybe a trim.
Surely he's had a trim, right?
Maybe a trim or two. Yeah.
I'm just looking at
his brother's got even longer hair. He's had one since his brother has.
Can his brother throw it like he can?
No, his brother can paint. He's a good artist. Great artist. He's good at painting pictures and all that.
I feel like we should quickly transition to the offensive line because I don't think any of us care
before
about.
We go off.
Yeah, the artistic ability of Trevor Lawrence's younger brother. I'm not as
older, but let's go.
I'm not quite as concerned about the offensive line situation as a lot of people are. And maybe I'm being just too optimistic for Georgia's chances. The biggest hurt is losing Andrew Thomas. I mean, I'm not sure if he gave up a sack at Georgia, but if he did, he didn't give up much. And but you're returning Justin Schaefer, who started a couple of games, Ben Cleveland, who was your starter at right guard, Jamari, who's probably going to play left tackle, Trey Hill was your starter at center, and then Warren Erickson started the Sugar Bowl game, if I'm not mistaken. You still have Xavier Truss to deal with, McClendon. Webb could come in and play center. That could kick Hill over to left guard if you wanted to. I'm assuming Georgia signs Broderick Jones. They obviously have signed Tate Ratledge. So you've got some tackle bodies coming into this thing. Losing Andrew is the part that hurts. And obviously Isaiah Wilson was a very good player for Georgia. But I think Isaiah is replaceable. Andrew maybe not as much, but maybe this is a slightly different offense coming into things. You're not so dependent on the offensive line being as dominant as Georgia wanted them to be in 2018 and 19.
Well, I think if you're a Georgia fan, you kind of knew Andrew Thomas was going to go. You thought maybe Isaiah Wilson would go. I don't think that surprised anyone. But you're sitting back thinking, hey, well, at least we got Cade Mays. We can throw Cade Mays out there at one of these tackle spots. Jamari, Trey Hill, Ben Cleveland, we'll be fine. Well, Cade obviously left, and all the details are over on Dog Post, so don't miss out on that. But I think you're right. Overall, I think it's going to be fine. You still got former 5-stars, lots of 4-stars. There's a lot of talent there. And Matt Luke is a pretty good coach. He knows what he's doing. But it is going to be tough to replace those tackles. I don't think the right tackle or left tackle will probably be as good as what they were last year. But it's not like Georgia's offensive line was insanely good last year. They were solid. They were a really good group. But I think Georgia could have some of that same success. I mean, I do think that Georgia will probably score more points per game and, be more up-tempo, and maybe that helps the offensive line. But, again, with this new scheme coming in, I think the ball will get out a little quicker. Who knows? I think Matt Luke will be able to coach this group up, and under the new offensive philosophy, I'm sure the offensive line will be fine. We don't know, but there are plenty of guys who are going to step up who have played before.
Yeah.
It's not like these guys are brand new. A lot of these guys have experience. They might not be a top 10 like Andrew Thomas, but that's what happens. These guys are still, very sought after prospects. They've got the size. And then the guys who I think are going to win the job are probably the ones who have been here a couple of years from that 2018 maybe 2019 class. And maybe you do have a guy like Broderick or Tate come in and play as a freshman a little bit. But overall, it's going to be guys who have been here for a couple years by now. And I think they should be fine.
Question is Broderick Jones as good a prospect as Andrew Thomas? I think we would both say probably not. But, you know, how far away from Andrew is he?
Well, I think Andrew was more ready to play coming in and being like, okay, I can definitely play SEC ball at a high level. Where I think Broderick is still a little bit more of a project. He's got that body type, but he's got the frame where you'd still like him to put on a little bit more weight. But he's got the length. There's no doubt about that. And he's, a pretty good athlete, especially in pass blocking situations. But I don't know if he's ready to step in day one like Andrew Thomas did.
Well, and of course, Andrew, as people may or may not recall, I mean, that 2017 season, Georgia had first-round draft picks on left tackle and right tackle. Are Jones, Ratledge, and Van Pran guys that you expect to come in and play, though?
I think you could. I really like Cedric Van Pran, and I think if he comes in and does really job and proves that he could play, high SEC caliber ball at center right away, then maybe you do switch Trey Hill over, who occasionally had some snap issues, didn't have the best year at center, and it's something that we've said for years now since we started covering Trey Hill that he looks like a guard. He's got the lower body type. Yeah. That maybe with a guy like either Clay Webb or Cedric Van Pran, however it is, comes in and looks like they could start at center. And again, this is Matt Luke's offensive line, and he might look at it different than Sam Pittman. So if one of those guys steps up at center, maybe that does help because you could move Trey Hill over to guard where he might be a little bit better.
See, I think my global point is that it's not like they don't have options, because they do. And I don't know how many people are thinking that Georgia's going to fall on its face, generally speaking. I don't know. It seems like they've got momentum right now coming into it seems like they've got momentum coming out of the offseason. I mean, you got to finish out with Jones and Van Pran and make sure nothing silly happens there. And if you do that in this recruiting class, you're looking still at the number one. I mean, you still can sign the number one class, but for the 2020 season, I think those guys will play, and I think they'll probably play on the right side, but I think they'll play. And this is still a pretty good group. I mean, I keep track of players as if in relation to them being top 100 players, and there are several two-dot players on the board here, and some of the one-dot players are not so bad themselves. So it's something to keep up with. Make sure you keep up with Dog Post. Make sure to click to subscribe. If you like what you're listening to, comment down below. Tell us where we're right. Tell us where we're wrong. And make sure to check out the other videos that we're showcasing up here on the screen. For Matt DeBary, Dean Legge, signing off.